beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of WTF What's the Frequency with me, your host, Vanessa Ralston. Now, I'm always talking about how the frequency of laughter can lift you up, and how if I don't laugh at least once a day, I think I'm having a pretty rotten time. So we all feel better from laughing, and it does really lift our spirits. But I also want to talk today about the frequency of the earth, how important the earth is as well. So I've got a really interesting guest today, Cathy Nesbitt. Not only is she a health and wellness advocate who is all about laughter, but she actually is also a worm specialist. Yes, I did say that. And so we're going to be having a very interesting conversation today about the frequency of the earth, the benefit of worms, and the benefit of laughter. So please join me in welcoming Cathy Nesbitt to have a fabulous conversation on WTF What's the Frequency?
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Cathy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, well, I'm really excited to have you here as well. Now, you're ringing from Canada, aren't you? One of my favourite places, and I believe you're in Ontario. Is that correct?
That is, yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. What's the weather like there at the moment? Because I always think of it as being quite similar to the UK, but hotter in the summer.
Yeah, it's grey and drizzly today.
Oh, snap. We're right on the same page there. So, without further ado, let's start talking about worms and their importance, because I live in the countryside in an agricultural area, although I am originally from London and a right townie. But I absolutely love earthing and grounding. And what I mean by that is getting my shoes and socks off, weather allowing, and letting my feet just touch the earth, because the frequency of the earth is scalar energy, isn't it? And incredibly good for our well-being. And I know that you know all about this. So tell us all about how you got into worms.
Yeah, thank you. It's the 22nd anniversary of Cathy's Crawley Composters.
Oh, wow,
20,
congratulations.
Thank you. Selling worms by the pound for indoor composting for 22 years. Oh my gosh. When I say that, I just think, wow, where did the time go, first of all?
I know, don't you just find as you get older, it's like you're on just fast forward all the day. A day goes like that, a week's like that. You hear it's like, where did that go?
Yeah, so it does seem like that. I don't know. Yeah, so 2002, the landfill for the Greater Toronto Area closed. It filled up, and we started to export our garbage to the United States. Wow, that's not a sustainable solution. Like, we'll
Well,
just ship it out of the country.
so just to be clear on that, because I'm really, can't bear this greenwash attached to so-called sustainable solutions. So everyone's recycling, the landfill's full, so you export it to America to be dealt with. Oh, that sounds really green, doesn't it?
Right? Oh, I mean, it's wrong on so many levels. And I had a solution. So this is a beautiful, hopeful solution. The worms are, so this is indoor composting with the worms. Same idea as outdoor composting. So you need a carbon nitrogen mix. The carbon that we use, or the bedding for the worms, is shredded paper. And the nitrogen is our food scraps from the kitchen. The worms require both. It is a special worm. They're earthworms, but there are thousands of types of worms. Only 4 have been identified for optimum for indoor composting.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. So a worm was a worm.
Right? Yeah. No. They all have their own identity. Really, I guess they require a different environment. The one that comes out when it rains, those the ones are the soil dwelling worms. They are the plows of the soil, so they're creating the tunnels and churning up all the nutrients. These worms are the worms that we use for vermicomposting are surface dwellers, so they only go a few inches into the surface, and any container will do. So a plastic toad or tub is perfect. The worms require the carbon and nitrogen. This is aerobic process, so although we're putting rotting food in, it doesn't smell bad. And that's like a built-in mechanism. I think that's one of the objections, Vanessa, to doing this is people think, oh, I'm going to add in my rotting scraps. And so is my house going to smell like rotting food? No, worms breathe through their skin. They breathe oxygen like we do. So, yeah, it's a built-in mechanism. If it smells bad, something's happened and action is required.
Well, no, I'm a big composter actually because I love I'm my friends and I we're like if we drive past a field and it's got beautiful brown dark brown soil, we're like, look at that, it's just like chocolate. Imagine what they're going to grow in there. It's going to taste lovely, which sounds really crazy to people that aren't attached to nature, but this is so important. Our soil produces our food, and if it's not in good quality, that is as important for your back garden or your window box even. But I've heard people say, oh my God, composting in my flat in London, are you insane? And it's like, no, I'm not actually. You can grow lettuce on your windowsill, provided the soil's good quality. And, you're throwing all this rotting stuff in your bin, quite happy to leave it there stinking for a couple of days. How about you throw it into the compost? It won't smell and you get something good out of it at the end of the day.
Right, that's it. If you for the people that compost, it takes the stink out of garbage. In 2002, we had a garbage strike in Toronto in the summer. Why have it in the winter when it's frozen? Right? That's not going to give you much
No,
oomph,
we want maggots. Let's have lots of maggots.
right? And smell and all that. We want it because then you need action fast. So I was watching the news. I don't do that anymore, but this is 20 years ago.
No, I don't want the news either. It's so depressing. I need to have therapy after it. There's no good news, is there?
Not really, not too much. Yeah, so 2002, I was watching the news and people were lining up for hours to drop their garbage off at a transfer station. And I said, those people don't compost because if you compost, it takes stink out of the garbage. And you wouldn't care how long they were on strike.
Well, no, no. And I mean, I used to have a wood burner. And, if I wasn't composting, everything just went in the wood burner, frankly, scraps of food, bits of cardboard, anyway. Well, apart from plastic, obviously. Um, but people we're so removed from this sort of recycling, aren't we? We think it's someone else's problem. We pop stuff in the right recycling bin and we lose responsibility for it. And I think people are so detached from Mother Earth. I started talking about earthing and grounding, getting my feet on the ground, the proper soil, and feeling the frequency of that. And some people think I'm insane, and they're so detached from our soil, which our earth, which replenishes us, that we have to start taking responsibility for this. So I think it's wonderful that you're sort of a woman on a mission about worms and you're encouraging people to do it inside, because I used to live in London, and people say, oh, what's London like? And it's like, it's really integrated there because everyone lives on top of each other. We haven't got any space. In a block of flats, you could have 25 different nationalities, and it's wonderful. And gardening, I always found, and even if it was just on your windowsill, was great in that situation because, my Syrian neighbours would be growing something completely different to me. I'd mainly be growing lettuces and cucumbers and stuff like that. They'd be growing peppers and exotic sort of stuff. And our African neighbours would be growing something else on their windowsills. And it was a real community thing to come together and talk about gardening. And I'm guessing your outreach through worms is very much the same, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. So I started in '02 and I would have a booth wherever I could because I was like, I have a solution for, to stop all these trucks going to the US. And I didn't realize that people don't buy what they need, they buy what they want. And they didn't really want worms in the house. Maybe not both parties. Because actually really funny. I had people come to my house. I don't have a retail outlet. So they come to my house and pick up orders. And often both parties will come in the house. And it's not gender. It's really fascinating. People think, oh, boys love worms, but no, it's not girls or boys. It really is not. Um, and one person will have their hand on the door, like waiting to, okay, I'm just here supporting my spouse or my partner. And then I'll talk to the person who's kind of afraid. And I'll say, do you smell anything? No. Come and look. I have 3 composters, 3 worm bins right in my kitchen. Come and have a look. And, I open the lid and you can see the rotting food, even though you're supposed to bury it. So it kind of looks like it's supposed to smell, but then it doesn't. And that's like, oh. And then I, kind of alleviate their fears. But one day I had a gentleman arrive and he said, I've been following you for years. And I wanted to get, and I'm like, oh, how creepy. Oh, I didn't know I had a stalker. And he said, my partner wouldn't let me get worms. My wife wouldn't let me get worms. That's what it was. But she's gone now. And I said, oh, sorry, like thinking that she'd passed. And he said, no, she's not dead.
That's so awful, isn't it, when you do that? You say, I'm so sorry for your loss. And then she ran off with the tennis coach.
So I said, so, and he said, no, she's not gone. He said, but, now I can get worms. So I said, oh, that's good. I said, I'm thinking about starting a dating site. Right? Like, oh, you like worms. I like worms. Hey, let's date. And then I said at that time I had 2 different types of worms. I had red wigglers and European night crawlers. So I said, oh, in addition to red wigglers, I have European night crawlers. And he said, no, I just want red wigglers. And I said, oh, another branch to my dating site. Like, are you exclusive? It really is. It's really something, Vanessa. When I started as a waste management tool to stop all this garbage being exported. I quickly realized that gardeners know the value of what the worms are producing. They know about this black gold, the compost. So I was getting all kinds of gardeners getting in touch because they might not have wanted to have worms, but they definitely wanted the final product.
Yeah.
So worms are going to play an ever increasing role in waste management, soil production, and therefore food security.
Yeah, I mean, we really need to start talking about food security because food in the US has gone up, I believe, 21%. It's gone up about 15% in the UK. And that means if you were on the breadline before those increases, frankly, you're starving now. So we've all got to get into composting at home, doing whatever the hell it takes to just boost food. And if there's a spare space anywhere, claim it and start planting, I say. I live in Suffolk, and let me tell you, there isn't a space that doesn't get planted if it's not being used, parked on or planted. It's one or the other, and it's wonderful. And people are just growing food in their front gardens and saying to other people in the village, help yourself. It's wonderful, wonderful. But we need to do more because, we're very lazy and we're used to everything being wrapped in plastic and being presented nicely at the supermarket, aren't we? And it's a long way away from where I grew up in the 70s, where there was an economic crisis and everyone grew as much as they could. And my God, if you could get a pig in your front garden, you'd get one in.
That's it. It's interesting. In Canada, we import 60% of our food. 60. So it's all fine. The groceries, the shelves are stocked. Everything's great. 2020 comes along and everything shuts down. The borders are closed. We're not coming or going. We're stuck in our house even. Not funny. And it was amazing how fast the shelves emptied.
Yeah.
And when you
Yeah,
can't
we
get
had
the
it.
food, we're insecure. We think everything's fine. When everything's fine, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, we had it in the UK, and last summer I can't remember when it was exactly. We couldn't get cucumbers. There was like, you just couldn't get them at all. Whatever the supply chain was, it broke down. I think we import about 70% of our food. And with immigration, our numbers have sort of doubled. So it's becoming an ever increasing problem. And I'm always snagging everybody. My daughters go nuts. And for God's sake, I'm like, listen, get land, grow food, never buy anywhere without a garden because you can feed yourself from a very small amount of space, And I think what I love about gardening is that you don't have to be clever to do it, do you? And you don't need to read. I mean, I just love having my hands in the soil and and I give all plants 3 chances. I plant you where I think you ought to go. If you don't get a bit droopy, I'll move you to my second spot. Get a bit droopy, get one last go. And if you don't produce anything, then you're out on the compost heap.
Three strikes, you're out.
Yeah, exactly. So this is all fascinating and really high frequency, I think, because getting in contact with producing good quality soil, growing food from that soil, replenishing your body with that stuff that you've not only grown in good soil, but you've put love into, all really high frequency, all really good for your body. But I want to talk about laughing now, because you're an absolute laughing advocate for good health, aren't you? I mean, every time I speak to you, I end up crying. So tell me about how all that happened. Were you always happy, or did you get really depressed and suddenly decide to start laughing? How did it all come about?
Oh, beautiful. I love it. Before we jump onto laughter, I would like to talk just one more piece about the gardening. When we're gardening, you started with earthing. So when we're gardening, if we don't have gloves on, we're touching the soil, and there are actually antidepressant microbes in the soil. So when we're garden, that's why gardeners are happy, because we're growing our food. We've slowed right down. You might be kneeling on the ground or sitting on it. Have your knee pads on, your happy knees or whatever. Whatever you're doing, we're slowing down. We're connected with nature. We're breathing the air, and we're not on our technology when we're gardening.
Yeah, yeah, actually, really good points. And I'm really glad you talked about this before we moved on, because electromagnetic frequency from phones, laptops, computers, smart fridges, microwaves, sat navs is surrounding us. And we don't really know what it's doing to us at all. And we are 70% water, and we are broadcasting our own electronic signal, all individually and unique to us, outwards. And this EMF is messing with that. And I think it's one of the reasons that people are getting so depressed and really fatigued. And one of the things I do when clients come to me with anxiety and depression is I say, right, where's this at night? They go, oh, on the bedside table. I'm like, oh, on the bedside table, what? Right next to your brain. And this thing emits electromagnetic frequency, which is a form of radiation, and it's on your bedside table. And they say, well, where's yours? I say, well, downstairs, plugged in where it can't bother me. And where's your laptop? Not in my bedroom. And have you got a TV in your room? No, I haven't. My bedroom is where I sleep. I don't have anything electronic in there at all. So, I think we've really got to start thinking about that, because it's all around us. And even the World Health Organization have said they'd like to do more research in it, which in my book is like, whoop, 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 there's a problem. So the more we can do to halt that, by putting our hands in the ground, by being barefoot on the ground, by connecting with nature, the more we're regulating our frequency, aren't we, as you so aptly put?
Absolutely. And as soon as we started wearing shoes, we got disconnected from the earth, and illnesses, people can track it. Illnesses started to increase as soon as we started wearing shoes, because we're disconnected from the energy of the earth. Oh, we could talk all day about that, but let's move on to laughter, because it's more fun.
Just before we finish, anyone who isn't in Canada or in the UK and is blessed enough to have sunny, hot weather or just warm and dry, get your shoes off, get outside, get your feet on the grass, and get your hands in the borders. Do a bit of gardening, even if you're doing it at the park. Go and have a sort of, pick some grass. Just make you feel good. So yeah, and do it for us, because we're inside in the cold, wishing we could. Anyway, let's talk about laughter.
That's it. So 2012, 10 years into my worm mission, one more person said, ew, worms in the house. And I'd heard it hundreds of times in the previous 10 years. I wasn't listening. I was like, no, you need this. It's important. And I'd move on to the next person. 2012, I don't know what happened. I felt it. I heard it. I listened, and I was like, oh my gosh, I questioned everything, Vanessa. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get the message out so so other people can hear this important message and why we need worms. And I'm really fast. I get an idea and I want it to come to life right away. And I thought, maybe I need to get a job. Who would have me? No,
God forbid, when you've been
no,
self-employed, the very thought of it.
this has to work. Who would have me?
Well,
uh,
also, what's being funny, just on that, I'm a mature lady, and we're not really wanted in the workplace, are we? When I decided to get a job some years ago, um, I got told either I was overqualified or they were worried that I might want their job. And it was like, no, I just want in one interview, I just said, look, dude, I've done your job. Just want a nice, easy one where I can use my big brain and not have to work too hard because I'm getting on a bit now.
right? Yeah, there's a lot of ageism. You're
Yeah.
too qualified, yeah, so many things. Oh,
Yeah, but
our
we're
whole
not going to have a baby and take 6 months off work, are we?
no, probably not. That would be a
Yeah,
miracle.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry, just wanted to get that one in there as well.
Yeah, so I questioned everything in 2012 when I heard that. And the very next day I was introduced to laughter yoga. So laughter yoga is not doing yoga and laughing. It's laughing as an exercise. It's not jokes or comedy because those are cultural, like two people going into a bar or somewhere. It's not funny for them. So this was started in 1995 by a medical doctor. It's a real thing, and his goal is world peace. He was writing an article for a magazine about laughter, and while he was researching, he came across all this research stating that laughter is the best medicine. And he got an idea: if laughter is the best medicine, why don't we just laugh? And he could only find 5 people in India in '95 to laugh with him, and I think that's funny in itself.
I think that's brilliant because, like with all these things, people go, okay, you're mad. We're so tied into, chopping people about, having surgery, chemotherapy, all these things. And we're so conditioned, aren't we, that we never look outside that box and say, what else could we do? And like I said at the beginning, I don't laugh every day. I've had a rotten one, frankly.
Yeah, so laughter it's intentional laughter exercises. So there's little games to inspire the laughter. The laughter leader leads the way. There's 40 foundational exercises. But now it's a global movement. It's we're in over 120 countries now. And I believe that laughter yoga was started in 1995, so we could be ready for 2020.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yes, prior to 2020, there was very few opportunities to laugh online. And now you can laugh 24/7 for free around the world. You don't need to speak the language because laughter is the universal language.
And
Even
is
if
there like a website that you can just dial into and just watch people laughing and get involved? Because it is infectious laughing, isn't it?
it is in a good way, it's contagious in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I must tell you, I did the most awful thing. I'm going to apologise as well to Jack Spencer because years and years ago, I went to a nativity play and I can't even remember what the boy did, poor thing. But he did something that was like really ridiculous. And I'm a terrible giggler. And I tried really hard not to laugh. And eventually it just spluttered out of me. And I started like laughing really quietly. Well, it just spread throughout the whole audience. It was my fault that all the grown-ups were laughing. And in the end, the headmaster had to come out and tell us to calm down. But it is infectious. And yeah, sorry, Jack Spencer, that was all my fault. And I hope it didn't affect your life too much.
It's due to mirror neurons. So mirror neurons, have you heard of mirror neurons?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so for those listening, mirror neurons are only very few, like humans have them, apes have them, and a few other animals, but otherwise we're a special breed to have these. And what it is, like ever notice when you see somebody laughing, you want to laugh too? Or you see somebody crying or somebody sad, you might feel sad too. Those are the mirror neurons. And so that's why the laughter is so contagious, because we see laughter, we're primed for laughter, but we're on the other side, we're also primed for negative. And our brain is the function of our brain is to keep us safe and conserve energy. So it knows what to do, like a family function. I'll take that as an example. You go to a family function, maybe your sibling says that thing that they always say, and then you get into it again. I know what to, so your brain's like, I know what to do here. So you just launch into that same old argument because you know what to do. You've done it before, and down you go, the rabbit hole. What we can do with laughter is we laugh, and that changes our mind. It changes our state. It doesn't matter. Our body doesn't know if it's real or simulated laughter. Our brain knows. Our brain is like, oh, why are you laughing? You look ridiculous. Stop it. The voice in your head. Like, what are you doing? There's nothing funny here. But the body's like, pew, 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 secreting all the love drugs, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And I think the very most important thing for laughter is the oxygen. We can live without food and water for a few days. We can only live without oxygen for a few minutes. So laughter forces us, because you can't just ha, you're exhaling, ha, ha, ha. You have to breathe deep so you can continue laughing at the joke or whatever you're laughing at.
That is so interesting that you said that, because I worked at Harrods when the bomb went off, and we got everybody underground, because there's loads of tunnels under Harrods, into the warehouse. And eventually, after we'd counted everybody and we knew all the aftershocks had gone, we were allowed out. And my friends and I ran across Hyde Park laughing, shouting, they didn't get us. We were howling with laughter, going, try harder, IRA. You didn't get us. You didn't blow us up. And then we went and had cocktails. And it was like we had to get it out of our system. It was a complete release, and it was quite bizarre. After that night, we never spoke about it again ever for like years and years and years. But that total release of all the stress and, the gratitude that we were still alive and we hadn't been blown up, just running and laughing, and then, being bent over, trying to grasp for our breath. Sounds so ridiculous to talk about it in those terms, but that's what we did. And it really, really, I think that's what left us with no mental scars about it, to be honest with you.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that you did that. And it does sound counterintuitive, absolutely. In nature, I'll use rabbits. When rabbits are being chased by a predator, if they get away, they go and shake. Many animals do this, and they shake the trauma off. They don't
That's so
hold on to it.
interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah, we hold on to the trauma. We're like, something happens, and it could be something very small to somebody else, like, oh, that's nothing, but it might be very traumatic for us. And we take that inhale. And instead of going and shaking it off or getting rid of it somehow, we hold on to it. Like, I'll use like tripping. We trip while we're out in public and we're totally embarrassed. We jump up. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. Even though we might have a broken leg or something now. But we're like, no, our pride is hurt. So we're like, I'm okay. I'm okay. Meanwhile, now we're scarred and we hold on to that. The next one goes on top and on top. So sometimes what happens is in a laughter club, we've held on for so long that after laughter, and this might sound counterintuitive as well, when we're laughing, we're jiggling our belly, and those could free up some of those memories. So I haven't actually had the experience where somebody's crying at the end of laughter, but people can experience sadness at the end of a laughter class because these things will pop up again. And I invite people that if that happens, now you're ready to look at it again. Like, what is that thing? Look at it, let it go. And then
coming up next on What's the Frequency?
Come up with solution. Then we're just saying things and then it gets worse and like, stop talking, everyone. Just start laughing.